one. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the set of the Business Temple podcast. What's up, yo? Oh, how you doing, Super Ray?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, Super Alex?
All good, all good. Particularly excited to share what we have for everybody here in lieu of our October series, which I will introduce to all of you now. Ray and I have been working on this for quite some time, doing a lot of planning, research behind the scenes. And what we want to talk to you about are three things in a 3-episode series. I know we did a couple of series before, one or two, but this is the first time we're actually going to do a 3-part series wherein all the episodes are actually connected to one another. So this series will consist on perspective, passion, and productivity. Why are we doing this? We want to relate it to the Halloween theme. We want to make sure you entrepreneurs and professionals out there beat fear, beat uncertainty, and beat the loss of control by listening to our episodes. And once again, we will be doing this, or rather uploading this, every single Saturday on October. Tell them, Ray, what else they need to do.
Well, you already know what they had to do. If you want to stay up to date with all things great this October, make sure you hit that bell notification and subscribe to our channel, The Business Temple, here on YouTube, because every single weekend we're bringing you the gift of business and entrepreneurship. And right now, I'm just super excited to start this 3-part series with you, Alex, and get talking about the first one, which is Stoicism. And I love this topic. I think Stoicism is one of those topics that gets fairly little attention, but it's so important to understand. And being a CEO, it's one of the core elements of being a great entrepreneur is to find the time to be stoic in many situations. But before we get started, let's go ahead and define Stoicism and what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just jumping right into the episode.
Let's get it, man. I mean, it's very important that we're straight to the point here where we talk about ancient philosophy with modern business. So, Stoicism, as defined by a lot of articles that I have read, this definition sticks out the most. It actually originated in the Hellenistic period, founded in Athens by Zeno, which was highly influenced by Socrates and eventually influenced by the Romans, such as Marcus Aurelius. And this was founded back in 300 BC. Now, Stoicism, like many philosophies, is such a philosophy where you really have to embody, because this is a philosophy that has to be applied in everyday life for you to be able to master it. Now, there are 4 particular principles of Stoicism, which is wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, which we will all discuss today here in the show, and how you can relate that to entrepreneurship, whether that means beating fear for starting your own startup, or beating fear for applying that promotion, or just beating fear overall when it comes to difficult things like maybe starting your own podcast or getting on stage and working on public speaking. Stoicism is a philosophy that is the answer to that. And I just want to give a fun trivia for our audience out there. Super Ray and I actually did this episode on Clubhouse way back in 2021. And so this gives us such a powerful insight now to share with all of you, because when we talked about it the first time and listened back to our content, we were like, wow, this stuff is great. And we found each other telling ourselves, you know what, the things that we talked about are some of the things that we actually need to hear right now. So as you can see, Stoicism is timeless. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did another episode like this a year and a half later on from now. But let's talk about, why don't we start off with how Stoicism shaped us? How did it start with us a year and a half ago? And then where are we at with it now?
Well, I'll tell you this, Alex. If you're an entrepreneur and like ourselves, we are no strangers to pain, to a point where it's like masochist levels of dealing with
Why do we
pain
do
in
this
a
to ourselves?
way. And in order to endure hardships, you have to look at all angles and do so without emotion. And the hardest thing to do is to have control of those emotions. And I would say that since doing that episode and having a better understanding of Stoicism, I've had a better understanding and control over my emotions. There is this thing called, everybody's familiar with IQ. Not many people are familiar with their EQ. So, an EQ
Yes.
is your emotional intelligence. It is a connection that you have and the intelligence that you have of not only your own connections, but emotions, but other people's emotions as well. And having that empathy, having that understanding and control is truly what makes a great entrepreneur. And one quote that I always go back to, I know I also have a different quote by Marcus Aurelius, who was a big time uh, believer and a student of Stoicism. And the quote is, "Don't ever let them see you sweat." And I think that really is
Yes,
one of
sir.
those things that I truly embody when I am faced with uncertainty and I'm faced with a challenge and I'm faced with something that I wasn't expecting. It runs through my mind every single time is don't let them see you sweat. Try to remain as calm as possible, deal with the situation as it comes, make, understand that the emotions that you're feeling at that moment are truly raw and you still need time to process. And in doing so, it helps you develop that resilience that we all need as
Yes.
entrepreneurs. And that is the key ingredient to becoming one of the key ingredients to becoming a great entrepreneur, is to have that resilience, to be able to adapt, to be able to even think on your feet. Because, hey, I promise you, things that happen to you once probably going to happen again, and there's no controlling that. There's certainties and uncertainties, and focusing on the uncertainties is never going to get you anywhere. I can touch a little bit more on that, but I'll leave it there, Alex.
No, I love it, man. It's just going full circle with our journey, and it continues on. From my perspective, stoicism has changed me deeply in a lot of ways. So back in 2021, I was still living in California, trying to make my way to New York. Now I'm in New York, and I think Stoicism really helped me allow a lot in such a way where Ray, you mentioned IQ, EQ. I want to introduce to the people AQ, which is your adversity quotient. It's how much you can handle stress, how much you can handle emotional distress, how much you can handle being put in a corner and still being the best version of yourself. And since you shared a quote, I want to share my favorite quote as well. I have one handy. You know how we do it here in the Business Temple. My quote is, "The obstacle in the way is the way." And
Mm,
stoicism is such a powerful philosophy in which you can apply to that quote and your adversity quotient as well. A lot of people, when they're put in the corner, it's fight or flight or freeze most of the time. And entrepreneurs are put in the corner a lot of times in their career. So it's very important wherein you could kick in your fight response and be like, you know what? I'm not giving up. You know what? This is not the end of me. This is not over. I say when it's over. It's not over till it's over. And just powering through whatever that adversity is, whatever those obstacles are. That is the way that stoicism teaches. I think what's most important in that regard as well, building off what you mentioned, Ray, about building resilience, is your emotional mastery. So
yeah.
I think with our Halloween theme here on beating fear, emotional mastery is very important. I mean, it can be extremely scary to launch a startup or to apply for promotion or speak in front of 100 people. So
Yeah.
I just want to be able to share some tips with our audience to and in terms of how they can beat that fear, how they can master their emotions. I know, Ray, you're a very stoic, logical person, and when it comes to situations like this, just the thing is with you is that the logic kicks in, objectiveness kicks in. And
Mhm.
how do you do that? How do you temper? Once again, one of the pillars of stoicism is temperance, tempering your emotions. So how do you like? I wouldn't say you shut off the emotions. I know you don't do that, but you temper it. So how do you do that?
First off, lots of practice, my friend, and lots of experience.
Yeah,
I think I've dealt
experience
with
definitely.
so much hardship in my life that I can't even fathom uh, thinking that somebody else would ever go through so much hardships that I've gone through. And I typically rely on that experience and rely on a notion that it's been worse. And most of the times it has
It's been
been.
worse.
But there are times where things do get bad. And finding that temperance, finding that strength really does just it's tough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I think the thing that I spoke about during 2001 podcast during our time at Clubhouse is the notion about unexpected sadness versus expected sadness, and the sadness that you expect isn't truly a sadness that you might feel
Super sad
very
about.
emotional towards it. Yeah, super sad about. But it's the unexpected sadness that really just creates that hole inside of you that where that fire used to burn. And I gave the example of rain. If you're outside and it starts raining and you're caught outside without an umbrella, now your day is ruined. You think it's a bad day, it's a horrible day,
Mhm.
and meanwhile everybody is going through rain as well. You have no control of the weather. There's zero chance that you can just say, hey, rain, stop raining. You're just out there without an umbrella. But imagine if you check the weather, you brought an umbrella with you, and now it's raining. It's no longer a sad day. You're now just outside with while it's
You're
raining
prepared
and
for it.
prepared, and you're prepared. You have an umbrella. And
Yeah.
this is an example that I always try to think back to when I go through this unexpected time period in the rain. And I also understand that the rain is not going to last forever. It's going to stay, it's going to come. And it's an appropriate analogy given that New York just flooded for a couple of
Right.
days. And understand that now, look, that it's sunny, the weather's better, and those days will pass. You just got to keep on going, adapt, and become stronger. And for the next time there is an anticipation of rain, you already know to try to look for those signs and bring an umbrella.
I love that. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Also a very, very timeless quote that I look to when I'm feeling down as well. I absolutely agree with you about unexpected and expected sadness. Obviously, when it comes to expected sadness, you see it coming. You know what I mean? And therefore, you can emotionally and mentally prepare for it. But then it's the unexpected sadness that really, really tests you, really, really tempers you. And I would say when it comes to stoicism and temperance is don't be afraid to be tempered. Don't be afraid to be sharpened by iron because these difficult happenings in your life, these difficult choices that you may have to face or difficult times, yes, they will pass. But then as they pass, it shapes you to a person where you can handle a lot more in the future, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. Because in business, there's always something.
Yeah.
And now you can look at that in a positive way or a negative way, whatever it is you're going through right now. But there's always something. And for
Yeah.
you to be tempered in such a way where, you know what? Yeah, there's always something. So what?
That
And
is
that's the beautiful thing about stoicism and emotional mastery, wherein you can just kick in your stoicism self and be like, okay, this is happening, but
yeah.
this is not happening to me. This is happening, but this is not happening to me. So I believe that, just thinking about it now, stoicism prevents you from being the victim. You're not in a victim mindset anymore. And that's such
Yeah.
a beautiful thing to think about because
Hmm.
it it, like I said, iron sharpens iron. Stoicism makes you stronger. It makes you a
Mhm.
stronger and more resilient individual, mentally, emotionally, physically, even. So the more you practice it, and Ray and I have been practicing it for the last year and a half, and we're still working on it. This is not something that you build off overnight.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree. And just it's that advice that people just need to hear sometimes, and to understand that it, things happen, and things happen that are outside of control. And one of the Marcus Aurelius quotes that I have here is that the more that we value things outside of our control, the less control we have. And I strongly believe that. I think
Yeah,
the more value we place on those things that are just outside of our control, the more stressed about the more stressed we're gonna be. And whenever I see somebody that's just stressing out over something that they can't control, I start to think to myself that, well, I it's hard to even find that empathy, because I feel that this thing is out of your control. If it were in your control, you would be doing something about it. And if there is a way to do something about it, then if a stoic person will take action. That's also what I wanted to mention too. And I mentioned this before, is that someone that's stoic isn't just, okay, I'm emotionless. I have no emotion. I'm just going to deal with this. They take action. If you're caught outside without an umbrella, go to the store and buy one. Figure out a way that will take you out of that kind of state. Take some sort of action that will make you feel more comfortable, make you feel better. Because at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own happiness. We are responsible for our
yes,
own
sir.
actions. And we're responsible for everything that happens around us. And if the environment or whatever it may be, or people that are negative, that are trying to bring you down, get those people away from your life. I know we're going to speak more about that later, but sticking to stoicism, stoic people understand that there are actions that can be taken to prevent this from happening. And if you are feeling down, you can find a logical way of escaping it.
I believe it, man. And I think that's where the wisdom pillar of stoicism comes in. A lot of people think, or a lot of people would judge stoic people as, like what you just said, emotionless individuals. That's not true. Stoic people, instead, they're not emotionless. They just use their emotions in such a way that brings them to action, or
Yeah,
that prevents them from feeling more pain or more suffering, because they do something about it. It's like a stop loss in stocks. So you just need to be able to tell yourself when enough is enough, and then this is what I'm going to do.
yeah.
I think that's very, very important to realize when it comes to stoics. We are not emotionless. However, there's something very important when it comes to wisdom and stoicism. Stoics are forever students of life.
Mhm.
The education doesn't end. Self mastery is a continuous education process. You learn something more about yourself every day. And just doing this episode with you, Super Ray, doing like a little bit of a full circle from 2021, listening to our episode before, and then us talking about it now. I can honestly say that I'm still learning new things from Stoicism. And so it's very, very important that you put yourself in a position of a student. Don't just, obviously, yes, learn from books, learn from experience, but more importantly, learn from negative experiences, learn from bad experiences. Don't
and
dismiss them. Go
and
ahead.
revisiting topics like we're doing right now.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if many of you watching right now, if you do journaling or anything like that. I do journaling. I think you do as well, don't you, Super Ray?
I
So
stopped for a while, but I'm back at it now. Yeah,
it's it's
actually.
it's it's so great to revisit some of the thoughts that you
Mm.
had before. And it's just being a student of life, being a stoic student of life is something that I am very proud to say, because it's just wisdom is something that I will forever be grateful for, that I get to have and that I get to learn from other people. And it's just something that is wonderful because I get to share it as well. So
So
I think the next pillar here, important to discuss as well, is courage. After all, our
mhm.
Halloween theme is beating fear through
Yes.
stoicism. So, quick question for you, Super Ray. If you were to get on stage, let's say you have a public speaking engagement, and a lot of people out here realize that public speaking is one of the scariest things one can partake in. How do you beat the fear?
That is the $1 million question that if someone were able to answer that, I would give them $1 million. Because the thing is, fear and nervousness is something that comes from within, and it's different for every individual. What I've noticed is that there is not a singular answer to escape that fear for every individual. The fear may come from different places. It might be a fear, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, not prepared, or a fear of social anxiety, whatever it may be. There are different types of fears that if you don't understand the fear that you are currently experiencing, then you will never be able to beat it. So I would say for people that are afraid of
I
public
love
speaking,
that.
it's not that specific, it's not as broad as saying I'm afraid of public speaking. It's I'm afraid of X, Y, and Z. I'm afraid to be judged. I'm afraid of X, Y, and Z. And then fighting that fear and finding ways to combat or diminish that fear is the best way of getting over that hump, getting over the hump of being a public speaker, I think.
I love that. I love that. I do not have the answer as well, so no $1 million for me, I guess. But
I come close to that $1 million because this is why we have professionals to help us, like
yes,
myself, to help you and everybody else that needs help with public speaking. Your Voice New York, check us out. and
absolutely.
and it's we're here. There are people out there that are here to like kind of just deconstruct where that fear is coming from. Like, why is it that we fear public speaking? Are we mostly afraid of that judgment? I mean, if you were afraid of judgment, and this is what I think, you wouldn't have your own style. You wouldn't be wearing the clothes you're wearing now, or if unless you're just getting every single piece of clothing from advice from, I don't know, an influencer or something. I think you can genuinely be yourself and give a great speech and give a great public speech and not be so nervous because you're being authentic and you're speaking to what you know and you understand. And I think that one of the best things I've ever heard too is think of fear as like those butterflies in your stomach and trying to get those butterflies to align because those butterflies are rarely ever going to go away. I don't care how experienced of a public speaker you are. There many public speakers are in the professional level that still get those nervous butterflies inside their stomach, but you will never notice it. You will never be able to tell because of how many times they already practiced this and gotten those that nervousness to fly into alignment. A little bit of nervousness is actually pretty good because in
Yeah.
my mind and for everybody else, it means that you care, is that you care about the material that you're sharing, you care about the wisdom that you're imposing on everybody else. I mean, take us for example. We're here on YouTube. We have an impact. We have a voice. We're saying things that hey, we're saying things that we found when we're experienced, and we're sharing that with the world. And
Right.
if there's things that need to be corrected or is feedback on something, there's a comment section. Please feel free to let us know because that's how we learn, that's how we grow, and that's how we become better speakers. And for anybody that has that fear of public speaking, continuously do it, continuously try, get that feedback and keep practicing, keep doing it.
I love it. And you know what I love most about what you said, Ray, is understanding the fear. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people generalize fear. And part of stoicism, if we're going to connect courage to wisdom, obviously is being a student of your fear as well. not,
Mhm.
of course, confront it, but also understand it. Why is it there? What is it exactly? I love the way you niche down to fear. Maybe I'm not actually afraid of public speaking. Maybe I'm actually afraid of being judged. And those are
Mhm.
two totally different things with how you're supposed to approach it, you know?
Absolutely.
And going to the quote that you mentioned, that's also one of my favorite quotes when it comes to public speaking, is that you will always feel the butterflies in your stomach. Butterflies being nervousness, fear, yada, yada, yada. The trick is to get the butterflies to fly in formation. And it's such a powerful, powerful quote. And you're right. You know, a lot of public speakers still do feel it. I know I still feel it whenever I speak on stage, whether it's virtual or in person. And I've been speaking for the last 8 years. Ray has been doing it for the last 10 years. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just it's always there. And I love what you said, Ray, because we can connect understanding fear not just with public speaking, but also when it comes to entrepreneurship. A lot of people have a fear of launching their own startup. A lot of people have a fear of voicing out their ideas or opinions in a boardroom. There's a lot of fear that seeps in entrepreneurial and corporate culture, and
Absolutely.
stoicism has many answers for you in that regard. And my advice there, I would say, is to build up what Ray says. Number one, accept the fear. A lot of people deny it, and they're like, you know what? I don't want to feel fear, and I'm gonna call it out right now. I think that's the wrong approach to it. You're
Mhm.
a human being. You will always feel these emotions, and like Super Ray says, the more you understand it, the less impact it will have over you, so you can perform better. It's very,
Absolutely.
very important. And then you mentioned another thing, Super Ray. It's about flipping the script, I believe. So you said nervousness isn't bad. You
Yeah.
know, it's showing you that you care about your material. So what Super Ray is telling you is that you're flipping the script in your mind, wherein, you know what, I don't want to be nervous. Being nervous sucks. I'm not going to be able to perform if I'm nervous. But if you flip the script in your mind, change the self dialogue that you have with a particular negative emotion, it will not have negative effects on you.
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
just powerful what you said there, man. And
Thank you.
last
Thank you,
thing,
Sister Alex.
yes,
I, I
sir.
I know that another like just I don't know if this might be archaic at this point, but there is also the notion of like turning that nervousness into excitement. I
Okay,
I kind of agree with
expound.
that in a way because but it can be a little bit over the top sometimes. I feel that if you're way too nervous and then you're way too excited, I think it just takes away from the message. So finding that right balance of nervousness and excitement is probably where the sweet spot is. Uh, I don't think that,
Temperance.
yeah, it's temperance, absolutely. So I just wanted to add that little quick tidbit to that. And and yeah, thanks, Super
No,
Alex. You want
that
to jump
that's
into the
awesome, man.
next?
The last thing we want to cover is on justice. Of course, there are many ways to define justice, and I think when I was listening to our Clubhouse episode, we defined justice in such a way where, of course, you don't neglect people who are being abused, stand up for them, and all that. Where I want to connect it now from a different perspective, a year and a half later, is doing justice to yourself. You know,
Mm,
if you have an idea you want to move on, if you have a product that you want to push in the market, a service that you want to share with other people, do yourself that justice as an entrepreneur. Be an entrepreneur. Be a stoic entrepreneur. This is your call to action, permission granted to go out there and make these bold moves. Because, like what Ray said earlier, you are solely in control of your own happiness. Nobody's gonna make you happy, and it shouldn't be. It's not fair if you give someone the burden to make you happy. No, that should
mhm.
be on you. And a lot of times, a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is the answer. The answer is yes. Being an entrepreneur makes people crazy happy. But of course, there's a price to be paid for that. You will go through a lot of adversity. You will go through a lot of hardships. But if you equip yourself with the right tools, with stoicism, by listening to the Business Temple podcast, with all the philosophies that we talk about every single weekend, you will be
Absolutely.
equipped to deal with these things and go after your happiness in such a bold manner. So
Absolutely.
take it
Alex,
from there, everybody.
I did have a question for you, and that question is regarding justice
Go
is
ahead.
and stoicism. What do you have an example, like a personal example or something that people can like cling on to in terms of understanding justice when it comes to stoics?
So justice and stoicism in such a way are, I think it's one of the most important virtues of stoicism, because when you put wisdom, courage, and temperance all together, justice is the call to action to it. Justice is the move you're going to make to do right by you or to do right by someone else. So I think justice is the cherry on top of the cake that'll cause you to move, because you have wisdom, temperance, and encourage. It's all very inward. I would say justice, now you have to go outward. Now you have to serve other people. Now you have to help other people. Of course, helping and serving yourself at the same time. That's how I feel about it. Where do you stand with it?
I get it. I think that in a way though, justice looks kind of different for different people. Like,
That's true.
is it justifiable for your actions if, let's say, you do take an action that you believe is justified but not may not be? For example, vengeance. It's not really justice, but think of like a person like Batman.
Mm-hmm.
His parents got murdered, and now he goes out and I stops criminals, yes, but his way of stopping criminals is very questionable. And that's kind of like where the
Vigilante type of justice.
the kind of like where my head was going to when it comes to like justice or the like thinking like I don't know the
I think
Justice League.
it's such a conundrum, and it's true. But I think if justice is guided by virtue,
Mhm.
then almost always, not always, almost always, it will it will fall in the right place, as long as it's
I love
guided
that.
by virtue and ethic. Because
I
if
love
we talk about
it.
justice that's guided by revenge, vengeance, or doing harm to others, then you know can't really say it's justice. But I'm not dismissing the fact that for some people in a certain situation that may feel like justice.
Mhm.
I'm not dismissing that fact. But once again, almost always, justice, if guided by virtue and ethic, it'll almost always fall in the right place.
I love
Million
that.
dollar answer?
It's such a
All right,
I need
everybody.
to read.
Thank you all for joining us on another set of the Business Temple podcast. We will continue to upload pre recordings for this October series. You have just experienced the Stoic CEO's playbook on beating fear and working towards changing your perspective. Once again, Super Ray, let them know where they can find us.
You can find us on Clubhouse, where we had the 2001 episode there. You
That's
can
right.
also find us on Instagram at the Business Temple. Uh, we have the links below there. And also make sure to follow us. Click that bell subscribe button and follow us here at the Business Temple. Leave a comment, leave a like. If you like this series, if you want to know more, feel free to email us. We are easily contacted by all channels, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you then. Peace.
Peace.